Hey there, core family. It's Lee here, and I'm in Virginia, Southern Virginia, with my family. I just had the chance to spend a week up in Northern Virginia at the Advanced Leadership and Facilitation Training. Maybe some of you were there, and we got to spend a week, Britta and myself, with some of the best leaders in training that I know of, and to lead them into this journey of leadership is really extraordinary. And so, really got me steeped in this mindset of the qualities, the essential qualities of leadership. And also because we are beginning, well, we're not beginning, we are almost ready to start our leadership development training, which is our biggest immersion each year into the theme of leadership, this 10-month training. It's coming up soon. And it really got me thinking about some of the essential qualities of leadership. And there are many of them that are very obvious. But what I left this past week with that I wanted to share with you was a little bit of a paradox, which is I think one of the essential qualities of leadership is to become the custodian of my own needs. A really overlooked quality. What do I mean by needs? Well, we all have deep needs for security, affection, connection, love, respect, honor. I mean, the list goes on and on. And when we do not connect ourselves in a mature way to those needs, all kinds of problems arise. So before we can, I propose, step into leadership with others, we need to connect to, in a healthy way, our relationship to our own needs and getting those needs met. Otherwise, we're playing a pretend game. Because what we do in relationship to others is puff ourselves up or pretend that we don't have any needs, that we've got it all together. This is what the survivor self does. In core language, the survivor self is that part of me that wants to look like I've got it all together, right? Well, the problem is when I disconnect from the truth of who I am, that's disconnecting from my place of genuine needs to thrive as a human being. And also I disconnect from my gold. I disconnect from my real self. And so I'm playing this pretend game. Maybe you felt that way sometimes. It feels like I'm in a shell, you know? When we're in that place, it feels like we're in a shell. And my proposal is that when I go deep into the fragility of my humanity, including my needs, I can really connect to people and lead in a much more profound way. So why is it challenging for us to connect to our needs? Let me propose a couple things. We think needs are either weak or selfish. So we are perhaps taught by family, by society, by whoever that are to connect to our own needs. We shouldn't have needs. All right, that's kind of a little bit of the American mystique. I'm standalone. I don't have any needs. Perhaps it's common to people in many cultures, right? That to have needs is a bad thing. On the other hand, we get caught in a catch-22 between that and if I meet my needs, I'm being selfish. If I tend to my need for security, affection, honor, respect, all these things, that somehow I'm being selfish. And so that leaves us in a bit of a quandary. It gets reinforced that to go in and search for our needs is not actually very helpful. But I'm going to propose that whenever we're in relationship with anyone, including in a leadership position, we must connect in a deep way to our own needs, because all relationships are based on a need, at the very least, a need for connection. And if we don't connect to them in a mature way, and I propose society does not generally invite us to connect to our own needs in a mature way, if we don't, then we will get our needs met in an immature, unhealthy way. Let me say it again, because I think that's really important. If I don't consciously connect to my needs in a healthy way, my survivor self will tend to those needs in an unhealthy, unconscious way. And that's not the place to live life. It's not the place for intimate connection, for vulnerability. It's certainly not the place for leadership. So, a few things I wanted to share with you in terms of how do I know I am not the custodian of my own needs. So what does it mean to be the custodian of my needs? And how do I know when I'm not? Well, when we are not, we often find ourselves playing the blame game. So if you find yourself in the language of victimization or blaming yourself or others, be curious about, am I the custodian of my own needs? We may find ourselves frustrated by the same dynamic showing up in our life, in business, and relationships over and over and over, right? Thirdly, we may find ourselves generally not very generous. We're more focused on tending to something, to ourselves. And so we're actually not in a giving, generous position. These are some signs to actually not being the custodian of our own needs. And here's the paradox. When I actually, in a mature way, turn to my own fragility, my own humanity, including my gold and my needs, then I can actually maturely step into generosity, and I can actually step into leadership. What's at stake if we don't do this? And many people don't, right? Many people don't. I think the number one thing, if we don't become the custodian of our own needs, is we never play a bigger game. Especially those of us who do this kind of work. Maybe if you're watching this, you're someone who loves this kind of, well, I don't like this phrase, but self-help work, this work of self-improvement, this work of owning my best self, which is a beautiful endeavor. If we find ourselves stuck in that place of kind of perpetual self-examination, but not actually stepping forward to lead others or to contribute to the world, maybe a good sign that we're actually not tending to our own needs, because once we become the custodian of our needs, it's actually quite empowering, right? And if we don't do that, we will make someone else the custodian unconsciously for our needs. Does that make sense? I hope, right? So we make other people, hey, it's up to you to get my needs met. And that's usually not a self-conscious thing. It's usually an unconscious thing we do. And that is fundamentally handing over responsibility for our lives, right? And that often goes with a sense of stuckness. So when I can see my needs clearly, I can also see my gifts clearly. And so that's what's at stake if I don't really tend to that spot in me where my needs and my gifts, where reality meets in me, both my fragility and my gold. I will never connect to my true power, and I will never actually surrender to the power of grace, spirit, healthy self, higher self, right? The big healthy self. Because that's what's needed to connect in that capacity to my needs is the unpopular word that I'm going to promote is humility. A real deep grounded humility, not I'm awful, not that kind of humility, a humility that I am wonderfully, beautifully made, gifted, and I have needs that need to be tended to, right? And when I can do that, boy, there's something powerful there. So, so how do we do this? How do we do this? What makes it possible for us to uncover this? And what's the solution to living in a place where we are not the custodian of our needs? Well, the first thing is we want to uncover with courage what our needs are, what our deepest needs are, right? And for all of us, we all have basic human needs, but based on our human experience and our family dynamics and our particular wounding in the world and our particular gifts, we're going to have different needs that move to the fore. And those are the ones that are going to drive us. So we want to uncover them and become aligned with those needs, curious and leaning into and towards those needs. Be willing to go deep to see what they are. It's very countercultural. Be willing to go deep to see what they are and to see how owning them and not owning them is affecting your life, right? That's the number one thing. See how owning them and not owning them is affecting your life. Now, this is a huge endeavor, and I would be willing to say it's impossible to do by oneself, because the survivor self doesn't want to tend to our needs, right? So we need a place where we can collectively be supported and held, right, in this space of with a safe, loving, compassionate viewpoint to uncovering what my needs are. We need guidance. We need skilled leadership in that, because left to our own devices, myself included, left to our own devices, we will do anything and everything to actually not connect to our deeper needs. Well, why is that? Probably the topic for another discussion, but basically because it's vulnerable and it's scary. It is vulnerable and it's scary. So we need a safe place to do it. We need a safe place where people are a stand for my healthy self and they are standing in their healthy self and will not allow us to play the game, right? To play the inflated ego game, that cover up of the needs, right? And so I think the biggest step we can take is to put ourselves in a space where we can uncover those needs in a loving, supported way. And we can become the custodian of them. Now that's power, right? That aligns us with our own humanity, reality, grace, and then I can deal with the reality of who and what's in front of me. By the way, another reason it's really important for leadership is everybody else out there is playing the same game. And I mean the game of, I'm fine, I have no needs, right? But we can see when we start to look through the lens of being the empowered custodian of my own humanity, including my needs, then I can start to see that dynamic in myself and others. And that's a beautiful place to lead from. So creating a space where this can happen is what the leadership development training is all about. And we take 10 months, the better part of 10 months, to hold you in that space where you can examine in a loving, secure space your own fragile humanity and what your deepest needs are, right? And how they can inform you and how you can take responsibility for them with support, right? And lead from that place. It's leadership from the inside out. And I dare say all of the great leaders do this, whether they call it this or not. So I wanted to put that out there, to mention it, and to remind you, if you're curious and wanting to explore this, the leadership development training is open, but registration closes this Sunday. We get started next month in June for this 10-month journey into this deep exploration, part of which is looking more deeply at our own individual humanity, including our needs and our gold, and building our leadership from that place. So this is the last week to register. So if you're considering, please reach out to us. We'll have a conversation with you. Registration closes Sunday. We would love to welcome you into the leadership development training this year. All right, my friends, I'll say goodbye for now. Please add your comments. I'm happy to come back around and visit comments and questions here, and we can continue this conversation around leadership. Blessings to you.